The day I buried my mother was supposed to be the day I said goodbye to the woman who had loved me through every failure, every heartbreak, and every difficult season of my life. But in the middle of the funeral, while I was standing beside my father with tears running down my face, my phone rang. It was my husband. My father answered because my hands were shaking too badly to move. He put the call on speaker, thinking perhaps something was wrong. Instead, everyone heard my husband say, coldly and impatiently, "Put me before your mother. Come to my family gathering in an hour." The silence that followed was more painful than the funeral itself. And then my father slowly lifted his head, wiped his tears, and said something that changed my life forever. Before I tell you what happened next, if you believe that kindness, loyalty, and second chances still matter, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You never know when a story like this might remind someone that they deserve to be treated with love and respect. My name is Emily, and my mother, Margaret, had been my safest place in the world. She was the woman who called me every morning just to ask if I had slept well. When I got married to Daniel, she never tried to control my life. She simply told me, marriage should give you a home, not take your peace away. At the time, I smiled and promised her I understood. I didn't realize how important those words would become. Daniel had been charming when we first met. He brought flowers, remembered small details, and told me I was the woman he had always dreamed of. But slowly, things changed. He began criticizing how often I visited my parents. He complained whenever I helped my mother after her health started declining. Whenever I wanted to spend a weekend with my family, Daniel acted as if I had betrayed him. When my mother became seriously ill, I spent more time at my parents' house. She was weak, but she tried to hide how frightened she was. I would sit beside her bed, brush her hair, and tell her everything would be okay, even when I didn't believe it myself. My father rarely left her side. Their marriage had lasted 42 years, and watching him care for her taught me what love was supposed to look like. Daniel didn't see it that way. He said I was obsessed with my mother. He told me I was neglecting my marriage. I tried to explain that my mother might not have much time left. He simply replied that everyone dies eventually and that I couldn't spend my entire life crying over her. Those words stayed in my heart. 3 weeks later, my mother passed away peacefully just before sunrise. I was holding her hand when she took her final breath. For a few seconds, I couldn't understand what had happened. I kept waiting for her chest to rise again. Then my father leaned over her and kissed her forehead, whispering that he loved her. I watched the strongest man I knew completely break down. The funeral was quiet and heartbreaking. Flowers covered the room. Photographs of my mother were displayed everywhere, showing her smiling at birthdays, Christmas mornings, family vacations, and ordinary moments that suddenly felt priceless. I stood beside my father, barely able to breathe. Then my phone rang. It was Daniel. My father picked it up because I couldn't move. He answered, thinking Daniel might be calling to offer condolences. Instead, Daniel immediately began complaining about the family gathering his relatives were having that evening. He wanted me to leave my mother's funeral and come to his family's house within an hour. My father put the phone on speaker. Then Daniel said the words that froze everyone in the room. "Put me before your mother. Your mother is gone. My family is still here. If you really love me, you'll come." Nobody spoke. I stared at the phone as if I were hearing a stranger. My father slowly stood up. His face had changed. The sadness was still there, but something stronger had replaced it. He took the phone in his hand and said calmly, "Daniel, my daughter is exactly where she belongs." Daniel began arguing, saying that I was his wife and should prioritize him. My father listened without interrupting. Then he looked at me and asked quietly, "Emily, do you want to go?" I couldn't answer immediately. For years, I had been trying to keep everyone happy. I had apologized when I wasn't wrong. I had cancelled plans with my parents because Daniel was upset. I had convinced myself that marriage meant sacrificing pieces of yourself. But standing there beside my mother's coffin, I finally understood something. My mother had spent her entire life teaching me to love myself enough to walk away from people who treated my love like an obligation. I looked at my father and shook my head. No. I don't want to go. My father nodded. Then he looked at Daniel and said, "You have your answer." Daniel hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That evening, when I returned home, Daniel was waiting in the living room. He was angry, not sorry. He told me I had embarrassed him in front of his family. He said my father had manipulated me. He accused me of choosing my dead mother over my living husband. Something inside me finally broke. I walked into the bedroom and opened the small drawer where I kept old letters from my mother. I found one she had written to me shortly after my wedding. I had never opened it because she had told me to read it only when I truly needed it. With trembling hands, I unfolded the paper. Her handwriting filled the page. She wrote that marriage was not supposed to be a competition between a spouse and a family. She said that a good husband would never force me to prove my love by abandoning the people who raised me. And she wrote one final sentence that brought me to tears: "If someone asks you to choose between love and respect, choose the place where both can exist." I looked at Daniel. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of losing him. I was afraid of losing myself. The next morning, I packed a suitcase and went to my father's house. Daniel didn't believe I would actually leave. He thought I would cry, apologize, and return. But I didn't. Days became weeks. My father and I grieved together. We cooked my mother's recipes, looked through old photographs, and slowly learned how to live with the empty chair at the table. Then, one afternoon, a package arrived at the house. Inside was my mother's final notebook. My father had found it among her belongings. The notebook contained letters, memories, and little notes she had written during her illness. Near the end, there was a page addressed to me. She wrote, "Emily, if you're reading this, I'm probably no longer beside you. Please don't spend your life trying to earn love from someone who makes you feel guilty for having a heart. Your life is yours. Choose people who make you feel safe enough to be yourself." I held that notebook against my chest and cried until I couldn't breathe. That was the moment I knew my mother's final gift wasn't money, jewelry, or property. It was permission. Permission to stop begging for love. Permission to stop apologizing for caring. Permission to choose peace. Months later, Daniel asked to meet me. He apologized. He said he had been selfish. He admitted that he had taken my love for granted. I listened. But forgiveness did not mean returning to the same life. I told him I forgave him, but I couldn't forget what I had learned. Sometimes forgiveness means releasing anger. Sometimes it means walking away without hatred. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is close a door that you kept hoping someone else would finally learn how to open. My father eventually smiled again. Not because he stopped missing my mother, but because he realized she had left something beautiful behind, a daughter who finally understood her worth. A year after the funeral, I planted a small garden outside my father's house. In the middle of it, I placed my mother's favorite flowers. Every spring, they bloomed. And every time I saw them, I remembered that terrible phone call. The call that was supposed to make me choose between my husband and my mother. Instead, it helped me choose myself. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may need this message, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach people who may be silently going through something similar. And before you go, I have one special request. Comment, "I choose peace," if you believe nobody should have to destroy themselves just to keep someone else happy. Because sometimes the person we lose isn't the person who leaves us. Sometimes the person we lose is the version of ourselves we became just to be loved. And sometimes, the greatest goodbye is not the end of a life. It is the beginning of our own.